it was fun while it lasted. It's still hanging in there, but it feels like it's been on a continual decline. But what's on a continual incline here is Legends of Runeterra, and we are going to get into our top four. Greenseers versus Bratchedkata. Looks like a little bit of difference from the bans that we saw in the previous game, as the War Mothers is going to get queued up first here for Kata.
Yeah, Greenseers denying the declining to ban it this time. Not sure what changed.
Well, I don't think we've gotten to see Greenseers yet. It's possible that he's been banning the Lee Sin in these mirror matched lineups, but I would assume that Bratchkata has stuck with the plan of banning the War Mothers, as the Lee Sin is what we see here out of Greenseers. I'd be pretty surprised if either one of them actually did go for the TF Swain.
Yeah, I think it would be a good ban. I could see that. It depends on what you think your opponent's going to ban, because this matchup here, the Lee Sin deck is heavily favored against War Mothers, with deny as well as that clock, and there's so much protection for the expensive interaction that a War Mothers deck could have. So outside of like a Trundle just going to town early and a Lee Sin showing up late, I think this is a very favorable matchup.
Yeah, and it's possible that, Bratchkata decided, maybe I will actually just accept the loss to this Lee Sin deck. I think that I have a better chance of getting a win against it than I do your War Mothers, so we're still going to ban that out. But I would think that Bratchkata is probably just looking to 2-0 this TF Swain deck. Maybe decides my deck is a little bit more built for the mirror, or maybe I just am confident in my ability to play it better than you, and instead just going to take this match for what it is, try to pick on that deck, because the Lee Sin deck generally should feel favored against the War Mothers.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually recently started writing for Tempo Storm, helping out with the meta report over there, the snapshot, and that was one thing we noted about this matchup. We do the matchup analysis, and this one just seems really bad. And I think that's a good strat, and it also is probably why we see the lead with War Mothers. Whenever I play tournaments, and I think players should probably do this. If you have a really bad matchup, I think you should lead with the deck that has the worst matchup, because there is a non-zero chance, 50-50 chance that your opponent could lead with a deck that doesn't just hard counter it, and if you can slide a win in, that's great, because then you don't ever have to see the matchup.
And it'd be a really big sort of hurdle for Kata to get over here. We've seen this TF Swain deck take out Lee Sin both times that we saw it in the previous match. So if you could actually cheese out the win with the War Mothers here by things just lining up really great for you, and so far Greenseers doesn't look like he has the Lee Sin. So if there is a game to get it done, it's probably this one. And that does mean that, you've got that TF Swain into the Lee Sin for game number 2 or game number 3, depending on when it eventually comes out. And yeah, this Zenith Blade down onto the Mountain Goat is definitely a sort of concession that, yeah, I do not have a Lee Sin. I'm really just trying to thin out my deck a little bit and get to him as fast as I can, but he's not here. And this is one of the things that comes up with the Lee Sin deck a lot. Sure, you've got 8 cards in hand, but I know what half of them are. You've really only got 4 potential protective threats.
Yeah, and we see with this hand, though, a lot of single damage removal, which is good for bursting like Bastion, Spell Shields, but the only hard removal is this Ruination. But Trundle holding the board pretty well. Would have to gem up this Goat to be able to get through it. Has a lot of healing, at least 9-10 in hand right now. I like this open pass from Bratchkata.
Yeah, I kind of liked the idea of the burst pass from a Catalyst of Aeons, but holding up the Ruination does have a fair amount of value if Greenseers wants to get down, another unit, maybe throw down this. Is this the Zed version or the Diana version? I'm pretty sure it's Diana, as we do Lunari Duskbringer. Be kind of wild to play that one in the Zed. I know I had mentioned that the 1 mana burst spell is pretty good, but it's not that good. It's not so good that we're playing it in the Zed version.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And this Trundle also can level up next turn with this Ice Pillar. There was 1 Catalyst so far. Not much action beyond the Trundle, though, so looks to be pretty defensive. But that could change quickly A Catalyst could be big, especially into a War Mother's top deck.
I am a little curious about how Kata plans to deal with this goat on the following turn. You really can't afford to take the damage, but you don't want your Trundle to die before the pillar comes down. But now we do see the Lee Sin. No consideration even, hesitated on for that Ruination. Just is going to fire off this Catalyst.
Yeah, didn't even really think about it much. I guess the Lee Sin without Overwhelm. Maybe expects the Daybreak cast on the next turn to give him that option again.
All right, the high health of this Wording Stone is going to play in pretty big here. 12. I never know how to judge life totals in Legends of Runeterra. Like 12 sounds like a lot. It's more than half your life, but your opponent has 12 damage on board.
Yeah, we'll see Greenseers lining up the Overwhelm now to present the open attack with the Lee Sin. Thinking about it, pulling it back.
The Zenith Blade will put the Lee Sin at 4 out of 8, and with those 3 1-mana burst spells in hand, any of those 3 unknown cards or the top deck could be a burst speed spell in order to level the Lee Sin. And Bratchedkata doesn't have a vengeance, but we've seen Lee Sin players get punished so far for getting a little bit too hyphy and going for these all-in OTKs without any kind of protection. So Greenseers is going to play it a little bit more patiently and hold this one back.
Bratchedkata does pick up a little bit more follow-up to this Trundle. Another proactive play in Tryndamere. So maybe pressure, but definitely has to worry about this Lee Sin at this point. As you mentioned, this is going to move it up to 4. 3 more burst spells in hand. 2 of them are gems. We're looking at 4, 5 with the level up, 6, 7 with the gem. That's 14. No?
Maybe?
Thinking?
We got something? Okay, there's the Zenith Blade, and this does open up a potential Ruination. You do still have the mana to play all 3 of those 1-cost burst spells, and Deny would be the 4th spell to level the Lee Sin. So that is something that Bratchedkata is going to have to worry about. Does have the Vile Feast to get through a Bastion, but Deny is really the unknown factor here, and I am pretty sure he loses if he walks this into a Deny.
Yeah, it looks like it. Matt does check out. Can pick up 1 life from the Vile Feast, but that's not going to be enough. When you look at this Lee Sin doing double damage, at least 2 gems. Could be 6, 7. That's 14 already. That's already beyond the Vile Feast. So, gonna slow roll it. Gonna start with the Ice Pillar. Really checking to see if Greenseers, because if Greenseers' 4th spell, is this right? The Lee Sin's at 4 right now. Yeah.
Yep.
So if the 4th spell is a burst spell, then the option for Ruination is completely off the table. So maybe this is like, that's the one thing about Ice Pillar, and one of the beautiful things about Trundle, honestly, and annoying if you're on the other side of the board, is that the soft pass that you get out of this pillar is so annoying. It's like, what does Greenseers think about it? You see him roping, is like, is it vengeance? Is it this? Is it that? You know? And we'll see. Yep. Not moving in so far. We'll see what he lines in and locks in. Yep. Just locks in a kill on the stones. Doesn't even pull the pillar.
It makes a fair amount of sense. The one of the problems that you're going to run into is that if you do commit all of your mana for this big OTK, then Atrocity is something that just turns it off because they get to dodge out of the way of the kick. The Overwhelm will not be enough to kill your opponent. And now going in with these other units does mean that Bratchedkata has to consider, what happens if I walk this Trundle into a Pale Cascade by blocking out the bigger Goat Herder? And blocking the small one, as cool as it is, doesn't really represent a whole lot. There is still a non-zero chance that a kill onto it is pulled out of Greenseers here by, it's pretty unlikely, but the double Pale Cascade is a realistic option. But I do think it is very risky to try and block this bigger goat.
Definitely.
And you want this pillar to stick around to the following turn, so...
Must protect the life total around the side. Get him block. Wow, this game is yeah, as good as a matchup as you would think this Lee Sin deck is, and I'm not saying that, you know, it's bad, but the thing is, with open deck list and so much to play around, like, I didn't even think about the atrocity that you mentioned earlier, that being able to deny a kick could be huge. Strength with only 7 mana available, it's kind of hard to go all in on the Lee Sin.
Yeah, I was actually really curious if we were going to see a Ruination sort of post-combat, as that is probably one of the safest times to play it. I guess you could fire it off on your next turn. You will still have this 9/9 available, but we knew that Greenseers didn't have a Lee Sin earlier on in the game. It did take him a while to find one, so this is his only Lee Sin. You still have the Vile Feast to pop the Bastion. There's only 3 unknown cards, 4 on the following turn. And I think that even if you get the deny out of this Ruination, it does open you up to top deck your own Vengeance or your own Atrocity to either dodge the Lee Sin OTK or go for your own OTK in a couple of turns.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to need a little bit more proactive. An Atrocity would probably be a huge pickup. Weird and Stone is not going to do any good. Already Enlightened.
Yeah, I think it's... Oh, yeah, I think you have to try and Ruination this turn. Even if it doesn't work out, you've at least gotten the deny out of your opponent. But, I mean, this Avalanche seems really soft to me. It does still open up the possibility of a Ruination, but now you don't have the extra mana available for a Vile Feast to pop through a Bastion if that was the answer that Greenseers was holding on to.
Absolutely. And with the amount of burst spells that Bratchedkata knows, you see them all face up in the hand here. You can't really expect to be able to cast, similar to last turn, if there's another burst spell, being able to actually get this Ruination to even ask the "do you have a deny" question. So, not given the option to Bastion there.
Yeah, and if you had Ruination first and your opponent did have a deny, you could follow up with the Avalanche. You had the mana available for something like that. So I don't know. I'm not in love with the line that Bratchedkata has taken here. I am very worried about how he plans to answer this Lee Sin, because right now I'm not seeing anything. He does have the Vile Feast to push through the barrier on it, though, and can maybe take this out with the Tryndamere. And I guess that's plan A.
Yeah. Can also hit it with a Withering Wail, too. Yeah, I guess gonna go for the vulnerable kill on it. Gonna try that out. Is up against double Concussive Palm. Haven't seen any played so far. That would be the counterplay to this.
I think that there's the same number of Concussive Palms and denies in the deck, so...
That's right.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of pick your poison at this point.
It's also possible that it's better for Bratchedkata to try and take the vulnerable kill instead of the Ruination kill, because if there is a second Lee Sin, now it didn't look like there would be a second one, but if there is a second one, it is going to have to get developed as well. So maybe that's the lineup here. I see a lot of games end like that, like all the mana and all the resources spent to kill a Lee Sin, and then the other Lee Sin comes down and then cleans it up on the next turn. So we will see the first deny here on the Whale. And again, like you mentioned, the Bratchedkata does have this backup Vile Feast to burst the shield to keep the vulnerable play alive.
Yeah, and if Greenseers had a deny and a Bastion, I don't think you were ever really going to put yourself as a favorite position to win this game. So, I mean, I think it would have to be exactly that Bastion here, and it is. He had both answers. There was no play around for Bratchedkata, but does now have the Vengeance top deck available to him as sort of an answer to this Lee Sin. Now that, I mean, you would hope all of the protection spells is gone, as there is only one unknown factor left in here for Greenseers. All right, I like these attacks. You open yourself up so that the atrocity not only dodges the kick, but does now represent lethal damage with that Tryndamere or that Trundle. And yeah, I really just comes down to what does Bratchkata top deck here? Is it something to stop this Lee Sin unspeakable horror?
I don't think that's going to do it. No, this is the full 20. No amount of heal can save him. That's it.
I always hate when 20 damage combos exist in games where like they cap you out at that life total. I can't even like heal out of range for it, but yeah, it is what it is. And the Lee Sin, probably, I think it's one of the first one-shot, at least like mainstream consistent one-shot combos that we've seen.
Yeah, getting the full 20. I'm trying to think of any other one.
I mean, you could argue Karma Ezreal, but it does it through like 6 cards. I don't really count that one.
That would take some lobbying to argue that one for sure. 6 cards. That one always feels bad because it's not just, oh, here's 2 things that are happening. It's like double get excited and.
Oh man, I like Karma's Inside of Ages into like 2 health potions, and that's another like 18 damage.
Oh man.
It looked like an auto confirm on the mulligan from Bratchkata, so keeping the vengeance in the opener.
Yeah, probably prioritizing making sure that the Swain Leviathan endgame can't be locked in with that keep.
So is going to be a little bit vulnerable to the early game. No avalanche in the opener, and as I've sort of beaten to death on the day, a lot of 2 health units coming out of this TF Swain. They can go really wide on the board. Let me check on Greenseers' list real quick to see if he is actually running the Petty Officer still. And he has 2 copies in there, so more opportunities to go wide around that avalanche. And maybe Bratchkata just thinks he won't respect it, or that he will respect it rather, and just not try to hyper overextend into a card like this.
Yeah, and we see the development. Being able to actually ramp into this Trundle can, mitigate some of this early aggression as well. Have to be careful about it getting finished off by a flock for sure. I wonder if he didn't seem to consider playing the Hearthguard at all. What do you think about that?
I personally like getting my Hearthguard down first because, as you had mentioned, the flock does make this Trundle pretty vulnerable. I don't think there was any Troll Chance in Bratchkata's deck, so it doesn't really have the option to save this unit like you get out of some of the other War Mothers lists. And this is one of the best units in my deck, and since a flock almost would need to be put out in order to kill this Hearthguard as well, I think you had a pretty good shot at the Trundle surviving, but maybe just wanting to get the resources out of his opponent, doesn't really care too much for it. He's going to be able to skip turn 7 next turn and get this Tryndamere online pretty immediately anyway. But I mean, he does have the Ruination in hand. And whenever players ask me, what beats Twisted Fate Swain, my answer is generally a deck with Ruination in it. Anything that can take out the Swain Leviathan combo is going to feel really, really good into this deck. And it looks like we might even get the flock kill immediately onto this Trundle.
No, doesn't have it.
Interesting.
Would have been played for sure. Went for the red card for the extra damage there while the barrel was there. Was surely going to get challenged by the Trundle, so getting the extra damage in. We do see at 13 health, not that much healing in his hand. Not like we saw last game. It's just 1 point of healing coming from the Unspeakable Horror. So going to try and run it down, but not sending in the Twisted Fate. Doesn't really line up with that, I don't think. What do you think about this block not blocking the 3-2?
I think you just want to play around Noxian Fervor, but I think I would almost like my opponent to kill one of their own units to Fervor me. I guess one of the concerns would be if they had a barrel generator, but even then, then it's all of a sudden a 4 damage Noxian Fervor anyway. So I think with the Swain coming down, we are going to play this second Wording Stone, and this I'll put us on 9 mana. That's going to give us our pillar into Tryndamere turn. So things looking really good for Bratchkata so far here, who does finally pick up this Avalanche to clean up everything not named Swain.
Yeah, and that's very crucial also against Twisted Fate, which is, one of the better ways of combating or being able to react to these larger units while getting more value if the game goes grindy. So being able to have a clean kill.
Is it possible we're just going to see another stun down onto this Tryndamere? Are we going to get just a full suite of stuns out of Greenseers to push through this Swain? He's not dead by any means. He does still have a lot of non-fearsome blockers in these Wording Stones, and That doesn't even matter. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the attack token on Bratchedkata. The information on this game is so spread out. Like, the life totals are far away from whose turn it is. It can be difficult to keep track of. But, yeah, that will just be the Swain dying to the Tryndamere. So the stun coming out to try and protect it didn't quite work out, and does still have this Vengeance on backup if another Swain comes down, or, as we approach that pivotal Leviathan turn.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I imagine Bratchedkata is definitely keeping an eye on that. Now we see a pick a card for this.
Here we go.
Fate. It's going to bring it up to 7 or 6 after this draw.
Yeah, so if he has a salvage in hand alongside it, we are just going to see the TF level. And I mean, generally when the TF's at 2 out of 8, that's not when I'm starting to think, okay, I need to kill this Twisted Fate before it runs away with the game.
Yeah, didn't even consider the Avalanche on at that turn. But now we're looking at it at 6, and that could be huge, being able to get the gold cards, get some advantage. It'll also, if it levels, it'll be beyond the Avalanche range. But as you mentioned earlier, this Ruination is looming in Bratchedkata's hand here. So
I think
any kind of advantage could just get cleaned up. Starting with this Avalanche, one-sided board wipe.
Yeah, now even if we see the salvage out of Greenseers, you are going to get to kill that Twisted Fate with either, you got a couple of 1-damage spells in hand. You really got to pick your poison here. But now with only 4 mana left and completely devoid of Arachnoid Sentries, I do think that Bratchedkata is just going to be able to finish this one off on the following turn. Going to be able to drag whatever is played here to the side with a Wording Stone or the Pillar and push through a lethal amount of damage.
Yeah, more than lethal. Never even had to use the Vengeance that he kept in the opener. Neither of the threatening units are damaged for a guillotine.
Yeah, and I think that Greenseers might have been hoping to draw a salvage off of that TF pick a card, or maybe just thinking my hand is really bad. I need a couple of additional cards to try and combat what Bratchedkata is throwing at me. But whatever he was looking for, I don't think he found it, as he is going to fall here in game number 2 and push us through to that match point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the big story of that game was that there was no flock. Even after the Swain came out, there was no flock for the Trundle at all. And, like, we saw the keep of the Vengeance in the opener because of how important that is of shutting down Leviathan Swain in the late game. But one thing that we didn't mention is Trundle getting the Ice Pillar. The Ice Pillar alone is a threat to that combination. Because if you can pick off that Swain before the Leviathan comes down, or even if you take one hit, say you take one hit of the Swain Leviathan, you get it stunned, and then you hit something off of War Mothers, you can challenge, the Leviathan and pressure it and put it into range of removal, cheaper removal.
Yeah, the one sort of really funny difference to me the day that Call of the Mountain came out is you could tell who had and hadn't played Trundle based on who did and did not know that the Ice Pillar could attack, because that Ice Pillar dragging things out of the way and just letting other units get through comes up big a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And we even saw in the last turn those otherwise useless Weirding Stones, because we were on round 9 just about being able to just pull the Zap Sprayfin as well. That's something that I don't see many players take advantage of. So, well played. And now we'll get to see the Baj Noxmere.
I thought he was firing that Death's Hand down onto the keg. I was like, that's a weird opener, but all right.
All right. That's weird, but I'm in for it. Let's...
I mean, what do you... Yeah, I guess the blue card makes the most sense. There's no real reason to try and red card the keg. They'll just respond with whatever spell it is. And while this Twisted Fate isn't likely to get, leveled up or really do anything on this turn other than die to the keg, the draw that it does represent can't be understated. You already do have that Jack the Winner to make a pretty good turn 5 for yourself. And Greenseers is actually just going to start off with a draw spell.
Big differences between these lineups. I mean, this mirror match, you have no Noxian Guillotine on the side of Bratchedkata, but does have Jack the Winner, which can provide more pressure. You see it here; it can actually block this Swain. We'll see what he develops.
I did not expect this Twisted Fate to live.
No, I didn't either.
That one's news to me, but yeah, I think Jack the... Oh, no, maybe we're going to go for a Death's Hand into a flock. I mean, Death's Hand into Flock does set you up for a Zap Spray Fin to finish out the turn. I really don't think you can afford to play towards a TF level, though. I think that there is still too much removal. Even if it didn't come out immediately, the chances that your opponent draws into it just a little bit too high. So I do prefer the Jack the Winner to be able to turn this Swain off for the turn and, maybe start to get you I don't think this is really the matchup where you're playing the Sleep with the Fishies, but...
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
This is huge. If there's a
this is one of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the really big things about the Jack the Winner nerf is now Make It Rain into Flock really takes it off the table.
Yeah, this is, and then with only 3 spell mana left, there's no option for this Death's Hand Flock here. Gonna have to eat 6 from the Swain. Not being able to block it with a Twisted Fate. Yeah, that's a big punish that developed there. Still in a lot of tempo here.
So when Jack got nerfed from a 5/6 down to a 5/4, one of the things that I noticed was that as a 5/6, he seemed like he was kind of designed as a 5/4 that got to use one Sleep with the Fishies. And now, if you ever Sleep with the Fishes him, it definitely feels like he's open to all sorts of removal. He's not the sticky unit that he used to be. And while 5-mana 5/5s are good, unless they've got a tough keyword like the Radiant Guardian, or they've got a little bit of extra survivability some other way, they just don't feel that good.
No. I mean, I played the deck with when it was a 5/6, and like I said earlier, the just having the 5/6, it's like I wouldn't even cast Asleep. I mean, unless we were talking about leveled Swain in play or Riptide in hand, and that body, yeah, it just doesn't last as long as it used to, as much as it used to. And you wouldn't think that just that single toughness, but yeah, one number, you see the Petty Officer go down 1, and all of a sudden it's trading with Priestess, Solari Priestess.
Yeah, when we were kind of going over the spoilers for Call Them Out, and I think everybody knew that Jack was well statted, but he definitely wasn't on my list of cards that I think are going to get nerfed pretty soon after release.
Now we're looking at this, we said this Twisted Fate would probably die, but it might change the fact that it's still in play. I think it's at 4 now. 3 or 4
sounds correct.
And
actually
might actually make force some awkward lines here as we're getting into the Leviathan turn range. This is going to actually stun the Swain.
What are we doing?
Going to stun the Swain here to play around maybe double Flock or something like that, because I guess you could do that after. I don't know about the response there. There's no reason to plunder here. Maybe he wants to develop the Zap Spray thing.
Okay, so the 2 damage levels to Swain, and then the 1 secondary form of damage does stun the Swain. I wasn't sure how that was going to work because it all should resolve as part of the same spell, but I guess
it should. Yeah, no, that's the sweet spot on the 10 out of 12 Swain with the Death's Hand.
I'm not going to lie, for all the Swain that I've played in my life, that has somehow never come up for me.
Let's see if this Twisted Fate gets in the block. Again, neither deck has access to healing. Every life point is going to be precious. But I don't know. See, this Twisted Fate being in play, we talked about how Greenseers could play weird with it in there, but now you wonder, whenever it's looking at 4 with a salvage in hand, do you want to actually keep it in play? It might lead to you taking extra damage. It's a double-edged sword here. But no, Bratchedkata identifies, got enough end game. Probably not going to even need to worry about having, as awesome as a leveled up TF is. We see Leviathan, we see Riptide, and even Jack, and can use the salvage to just keep the juice flowing for that. Already has the Swain leveled up. No reason to put yourself in range here. Does decide to keep the elusive, though. What do you think about that?
I like that because you have the Riptide Rex on the following turn. And while if your Twisted Fate did survive the turn, it would have set itself up to level with the salvage, I don't think the TF actually wins you the game in a matchup like this, especially when you're this down on life. The gold card really doesn't represent much in a matchup where your opponent is constantly attacking with both Swain and Leviathan. Definitely feels like you need double gold card to deal with something like that. Zap Spray Fin should be able to turn on the Riptide Rex this turn. And I do like this as, sort of the way to clear out the board. If Greenseers responds with a Leviathan, then like, yeah, I'm taking a little bit of damage, but I have stopped the Swain Leviathan combo, but actually just going to throw it down. And this does mean that Riptide Rex has a fair amount of chances at missing. And I mean, you can't afford to play your own Leviathan here because Greenseers would then get, oh my gosh, that is a terrible Riptide Rex.
Yeah, getting no damage on the Leviathan.
This might be
not even
the worst Riptide Rex I've ever seen.
Not clearing out the Swain, not going to have a blocker on this open attack. Yeah, this is a bit much. And they're going to have to hit a Make It Rain on this open attack to just clear out the Swain. But being at 6, not going to be able to remove the Leviathan. This could be a lethal open attack here.
Yeah, and I think it's lethal even if the Make It Rain hits because you still don't have an answer for that Leviathan, which will still hit you for 5, will still deal 1 or 3 at the start of the turn, and you don't even high roll it, so you are just dead here to this Warden Spray. Greenseer is going to be moving on to the finals. Bratchedkata eliminated after the betrayal of the Riptide Rex.
Riptide betrayal, yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah, that Petty Officer really diverted the attention of that Shark Pirate.